Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing our deep dive into this Clemson Tigers program, heading into spring practice, fall camp, the 2024 season. Last week, we took a look at a Clemson offensive line. Now we're taking a look at the Clemson defensive line. And for the longtime listeners, many of you guys know how I feel about this defensive line for Clemson heading into 2024. A ton of young talent, and on the outside, you might have some more casual fans look at this Clemson team heading into 2024 and assume this defensive line is going to take a step back, losing Xavier Thomas, Tyler Davis, Rook O. You take a look at the young talent that played phenomenal for Clemson in 2023, and then you go into 2024 hoping those guys take another step. This is a Clemson defensive line that you bring Chris Rumph back to coach this group. I am extremely excited about what they can do in 2024. Really excited to get into it. I want to talk about two things. One, what we saw from this Clemson defensive line in 2023, and then talk about what this Clemson defensive line is going to look like in 2024. Before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And these deep dives have truly been a blast for me. I learned a ton from you guys in the comment section. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown. One, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, but more importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section on players you think are breaking out for the Clemson Tigers heading into that 2024 year. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And I want to start with what we saw from this unit back in 2023. And I think there's one thing that really stood out to me going back, watching some of the film, watched that Kentucky game this morning, was this Clemson defensive line physically is relatively dominant, right? They don't lose at the point of attack. They do a phenomenal job reestablishing the line of scrimmage. One thing that you want a little bit more progression of from this Clemson defensive line is being able to get off blocks. And you take a look at what made the Michigan defensive line so special in 2023. Yes, they won at the point of attack. They reset the line of scrimmage. But more importantly, what made them one of the better units across the country was they were really good at using their hands, getting off blocks, and making stops at the line of scrimmage. You look at this Clemson defensive line, and it's really encouraging kind of the ability to physically impose their will on opposing offensive lines. But you would like to see this Clemson defensive line get off blocks a little bit more, allowing these defensive linemen to make plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. And if they can take that step, I mean, that is a Clemson defensive line that is going to make a lot more plays in 2024. And I think you can kind of understand why maybe that was a little bit of a problem, right? Peter Woods, TJ Parker, guys who were true freshmen playing at the college football level, they're still, in a sense, learning how to play the sport at the college level, right? Using their hands, kind of working on some of that technique to get off blocks. But the encouraging part was you saw guys like Peter Woods, you saw guys like TJ Parker as true freshmen physically impose their will. And so, from a physical trait standpoint, they can get the job done up front for Clemson. Now you're trying to refine a little bit more of that technique, polish them up. And if you can do that, bringing back Chris Rumph to coach these guys up, I mean, I think you're going to see a defensive line that, yes, is going to continue to physically win at the point of attack, but now make some more plays at or behind the defense or at or behind the line of scrimmage. And that's probably what excites me the most. Now, you look at what this unit is going to be in 2024. I want to start on the interior of the defensive line, and losing a guy like Tyler Davis, losing a guy like Rook O, who have been phenomenal for Clemson the last couple of years. I think you're going to get probably a lot of casual fans that are going into Reed, Phil Steele, August in the summer months and say, oh, this Clemson defensive line might not be as good as it was in 2023. I think this unit can be better. And I think the inside of this Clemson defensive line is a strength for this program moving into 2024. Obviously, it starts with Peter Woods, 18 quarterback hurries, a 16% pass rush win rate as a true freshman. That is extremely rare. You see freshmen play at the college football level. It's rare, but you see it. You very rarely see it on the defensive line because you kind of have to be a grown man as a true freshman. Peter Woods was that guy. We saw it in spring practice about 12 months ago. We knew he'd be a force. He put it on the field for this Clemson team. And if you're a Clemson fan, I mean, what you're most excited about, that was Peter Woods as a true freshman. Another healthy offseason for Peter Woods, continuing to reshape that body in the weight room, continuing to learn how to use his hands, get off blocks at a higher level. If Peter Woods takes another step, you're looking at one of the better interior defensive linemen in the entire country. So I think it all starts with Peter Woods. Another guy that I was really intrigued by was Peyton Page. This was a guy that doesn't necessarily get all the hype. And I thought against Kentucky and against South Carolina, I mean, Peyton Page was really making his presence known. And again, a lot of the chatter goes to a true freshman like Peter Woods, or goes to an NFL prospect like Tyler Davis. I thought Peyton Page, and I'd probably throw in a guy like DeMonte Capehart as well, two guys that, I mean, really took steps in 2023. And if they can build on that in 2024, you're talking about three guys on the inside of that defensive line that were really playing good football for Clemson in 2023, and ideally build on that in 2024. And that's not to mention a guy like Vic Burley, who we're very excited about. Wish we got to see him as a freshman. But if he's anything like TJ Parker and Peter Woods, you're adding another elite guy on the inside, and Trey Williams as well. I mean, that is five guys on the inside of that Clemson defensive line that are probably starting for most Power 5 programs across the country. And what does that allow Clemson to do? It allows them to get really creative with what they want to do up front. One, you're keeping those big bodies extremely fresh for 12 games of a season, 4 quarters of a season. So you have depth on the inside. That's absolutely massive. But more importantly, if you're a little concerned about what the edge rusher position looks like, you can probably kick a guy like Peter Woods, who is certainly athletic enough to play that edge in certain positions and probably still be good on the inside. And that leads us to our next discussion. Again, the inside of that defensive line, I think, is going to be really good. I think some of those guys that are coming back really flashed, especially in the tail end of that season. You look at the edge rushing position. That is where I don't know if I'd use the word concern, but you are replacing some talent and you're a little bit thin there. And so the first guy you got to talk about is TJ Parker. And again, it seemed like Peter Woods got most of the hype as a true freshman. TJ Parker was probably just as good, if not better, than Peter Woods. And again, not taking anything away from Peter Woods, he was phenomenal. And TJ Parker was extremely good for Clemson as well. 22 quarterback hurries, a 10.5% pass rush run rate, but the numbers in the run game were probably more surprising. Again, you can see some freshmen get some burn and be really good pass rushers because they're really good athletes. It's rare to see freshmen along the line of scrimmage play against the run as well as TJ Parker did. He had 18 run stops and average depth of tackle of 0.5 yards down the field. What does that tell you about TJ Parker? He's winning at the point of attack. He's getting off blocks, making plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. TJ Parker, Peter Woods. I mean, two guys that in my mind, you're talking about all-American caliber defensive linemen heading into 2024. Now, the next question is who is going to step up? Now, Clemson has recruited that position relatively well. You have a guy like Zaire Patterson, who was a top 100 national prospect a couple of years ago. You have a guy like Cade Denhoff, who, again, was a guy that was coveted out of high school. You haven't seen them break through, so to speak. And I don't know if that's a matter of a guy like Xavier Thomas played extremely well. TJ Parker played extremely well. It's hard to get some of those edge rushers on the field, but those are the two guys that you're looking at where TJ Parker is really the only returning edge defender that has a ton of experience. And so Zaire Patterson, Cade, can those guys maybe take that step going into 2024? I think that's why you bring in a guy like Chris Rumph to help out with some of that development. That's the question that you're probably looking at. But again, the depth on the inside, I think, might allow Clemson to get a little bit creative in terms of what they're doing, right? Could a guy like Peter Woods maybe kick out to the edge in certain spots and him and TJ Parker go off the edge, and you have guys like Page and Capehart and Vic Burley on the inside? I think that depth on the inside might mitigate concerns that you have in the depth of that edge rusher room. And you also have some true freshmen that they might be able to play a little early. A guy like Darian Mayo, who physically certainly ready. Now, I think that depends on how well does he progress in the summer and in fall camp. Is he going to be ready to play as a true freshman? Because, again, it is rare. TJ Parker, Peter Woods, those guys were the anomalies. That's not necessarily a thing that you see very often. Those are the questions in my ears and eyes on the spring game, on spring practice, is going to be, what does that edge room look like? And are you getting development of a guy like Zaire Patterson? Because, again, the traits are there. You just got to see it put on the field. And, again, it's been a very crowded room in that Clemson edge rusher spot for the last couple of years. So maybe it's just Zaire Patterson hasn't necessarily gotten a chance. So I'm really excited to see what Zaire Patterson, a guy like Cade, can do heading into 2024, but on the inside, a dominant group. And you look at Clemson and what they want to do on defense, stop the run on first and second down, pin the ears back, and get after the passer. It looks like this Clemson defensive line certainly going to allow them to do that. And you have some of the better blitzing linebackers in the country, obviously, with a guy like Barry Carter. Really excited about this Clemson front seven as a whole. We'll leave it at that. Next week, we take a look at the Clemson offensive skill position. Again, a lot of young talent in that room. Really excited to dive into that one. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.